Imagine walking into a room full of musicians tuning their instruments all at once. It is pure noise. But then someone strikes a single metal tuning fork. That one clear, ringing note cuts through the chaos, giving the entire orchestra a perfect bass line to tune to. Human history can feel a lot like that noisy room. Thousands of years of ancient myths and fragmented stories all shouting at once. But if you listen closely enough, our languages actually share a baseline note too. Across the ancient world, specific sounds repeat whenever our ancestors talked about creation. The consonants K, P, and R, along with their close cousins G, B, and R, form a kind of phonetic chord. Whenever you hear the sequence, you are hearing the ancient sound of transformation. You can see it carved right here on the underside of this ancient Egyptian amulet. In Egypt, the word Kheper meant to transform or emerge. They used the scarab beetle rolling a ball of mud into life as the symbol for that creative process. Over in ancient Sumeria, hundreds of miles away, the same sound appears. They used the word giparu to describe a woven reed mat, specifically the sacred bed where new life began. And in ancient Hebrew, the word geber refers to a person's vitality, their raw strength, and the power required to grow and exist in the world. From the deserts of Egypt to the marshes of Mesopotamia, vastly different cultures used the same acoustic rhythm. This sequence is a shared human sound for the act of turning mud into form. To hear this ancient sequence clearly today, we can listen to Armenian. It acts as our historical tuning fork, an ancient language that has kept these old sounds alive and unchanged. In the Armenian tradition, history is a balance between two concepts: Hai, the breath of life, and Ara, the king who dies and returns. Together, they show us that life moves in a repeating loop of growth and renewal, much like the seasons. This loop of human civilization began in a very specific place. Early humans built their first great societies in the Mesopotamian marshes. In this flat, watery landscape, they had to pull themselves out of the mud and weave the reeds into solid ground. This ancient clay tablet records the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of our oldest surviving stories. If we listen to the sounds in his name, Gil connects to sedgegrass and mesh to reeds. Gilgamesh is the flower reed. He is the hero of the marsh. His mythic job was to gather those wild reeds and weave them into a flat, horizontal foundation. He built the giparu, the woven bed where society could finally stand on its own feet. Before human beings could start thinking about the stars, they had to do the hard, muddy work of laying down a secure, stable floor. Once that foundation was built, it needed to travel. The biblical figure of Abraham packed up that woven Sumerian reed bed and carried the tradition out of the marshes and across the flat deserts. His name carries those origins across the world. When it is spoken, you are using the A for breath, the BR for the act of crossing over, and M for the water. He is the blueprint of the marsh on the move. But a perfectly woven floor sitting in the dark eventually becomes a trap. When a society or a mind is completely settled, it stops growing. To move forward, it needs a disruption. Ancient stories speak of a figure named Lilith. For centuries, she was described as a creature of the night. But if we trace her meaning back to its roots, she functions more like an iridescent moth. The moth's job is to chew tiny holes into the dark, tightly woven walls of our safe little reed huts. She damages the perfect floor. But by doing so, she allows the outside light to finally, at long last, pierce through the darkness. This disruption is a necessity. Opening those gaps in our comfortable, woven world is what allows us to see that there is something else to reach for. For centuries, humanity lived on that horizontal line, surviving in the damp flatlands. But once the light finally came in, the human mind shifted. We developed a yearning to reach upward, moving from a flat line to a vertical point. In the ancient world, the symbol of this upward reach is Mount Ararat, with its two distinct twin peaks, Masis and Sis. These mountains were viewed as the nursing breasts of the earth. They provide the melting snow and water that feed the valleys below, while giving the people a permanent height to aspire to. These stories of weaving reeds and crossing deserts describe a pattern we still recognize today. We each start in our own version of the mud, building a life from what is around us. We lay down a foundation, and eventually we search for the light that pulls us toward our own personal peaks. We move from the marsh to the mountain. That single tuning fork we struck at the beginning is still vibrating. The sounds of transformation continue to ring through the way we speak and the way we grow. From the ancient marshes to the way we see ourselves today, the journey is an unbroken, continuous cycle of becoming. And to that cycle, there is really only one response: Io, yes.